Dr. Hashemi by Optics 11, the series where partial discharge concepts are explained step by step. Today's episode is about the theory of partial discharge. To complete the previous discussions of definition of the partial discharge and voltage levels, today I discuss about theory of partial discharge. Theory of the partial discharge is so extensive, but in this episode I explain very simplified theory for that, and you can understand what happens in the dielectric and insulation materials, what is the formulations or mathematics behind the partial discharge, and after that you can read the detailed specifications and explanations about the partial discharge in reference document. Consider we have an ideal dielectric or insulation materials. For example, solid insulation materials in the cable systems and high voltage cables, or paper and oil in power transformer, or gases inside the GIS and GIS. You have one high voltage electrodes and you have grounded electrode, or maybe you have X electrode, Y electrode, and you have distribution of electric field like this, and there is no differences between locations between two electrodes. But if you have a cavity in solid materials or insulation that you have, or any other defect, the distribution of electric field will be different, because the relative permittivity of the materials are different, like the cavity and air or void in solid materials, or bubbles in the oil or other dielectric or insulation materials. And the distribution of electric fields around the cavity or air or other defect will be different. And if the dielectric experiences the high electric field, some discharges occur, because the voltage and electric field in this cavity will be more than certain level of that, and discharge occurred. And locally you bridge the electrodes together. And this is the concept of the partial discharge and theory of partial discharge. If I want to model the partial discharge in insulation materials, I should have a relative elements of the electrical systems for the dielectric materials and insulation. Any ideal insulation materials is a capacitance and capacitor. And if I want to model the dielectric and insulation materials with defect, I should have C series and C of the defect. And they are series with together, and in the ideal you have CS, and for the dielectric and insulation materials with defect you have 2CS plus C defect. And there are some discharge and current of discharge, and this discharge is passing through the CP for parallel in the model of the dielectric materials. And by detecting the current or pulses that are generated due to defect, you can measure the partial discharge. Today we discussed the topic of the theory of partial discharge. Thank you for watching. We see you in the next episode.